The most feared woman in Redwood Crest Medical Center hit the floor in under 3 seconds. No scream, no struggle. Just the sickening thud of a body collapsing against polished linoleum, and then silence. The kind that makes your stomach drop. Veronica Hale had ruled that hospital for 8 years. She'd ended careers with a single phone call, buried complaints in locked filing cabinets, and made grown doctors stammer apologies for mistakes they didn't make. Nobody touched her. Nobody dared, until the new nurse did. Olivia Kane didn't raise her voice, didn't even look angry. She just moved, one fluid motion, professional and cold. And suddenly the woman who'd terrorized an entire staff was on her knees, gasping, begging in a voice nobody recognized. "Please, let me go." The hallway froze. 30 people. Not one of them breathed, because they'd just watched the impossible, the untouchable brought down by someone they'd written off as invisible. But here's what none of them knew yet. What would unravel everything in the hours to come? Olivia Kane wasn't just a nurse. She never had been. If you want to see how a quiet woman dismantled an empire built on fear, stay with me until the end. Drop a like, leave a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Because what happened next? It changed everything. Olivia Kane clocked in at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday that felt like every other Tuesday at Redwood Crest Medical Center. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting that flat, colorless glow that made everyone look halfway dead. She swiped her badge at the nurse's station, nodded to the overnight crew dragging themselves toward the exit, and checked the patient board without a word. "You're the new hire, right?" Olivia turned. A nurse in her mid-40s stood there, scrubs wrinkled, coffee cup trembling slightly in her hand. Her name tag read Brenda Moss, RN. "Started last week," Olivia said. Her voice was even, pleasant, forgettable. Brenda's smile didn't reach her eyes. "How are you finding it so far?" "Busy, but I've worked busy before." "Yeah, well..." Brenda glanced down the hall, then back. "Just keep your head down, do your job, don't get noticed." Olivia tilted her head slightly. Noticed by who? Brenda's jaw tightened. For a second, she looked like she might say something real. Then she just shook her head. "You'll figure it out." She walked away before Olivia could respond. The morning passed in a blur of vitals, med distributions, and patient rotations. Olivia moved through it all with the kind of efficiency that didn't draw attention, nothing flashy, nothing rushed. She smiled when patients asked questions, answered clearly, and never lingered longer than necessary. But she noticed everything. She noticed the way Dr. Marcus Lyle snapped at a resident over a charting error that wasn't actually an error. She noticed the way 2 nurses exchanged glances when a certain name came up on the intercom. She noticed the tension that rippled through the ICU whenever a particular door at the end of the hall opened. The door with the nameplate that read, Veronica Hale, Chief Administrator. Olivia had done her research before accepting the position. Veronica Hale was efficient by all official accounts. She'd streamlined operations, cut costs, improved patient turnover rates. The hospital's board loved her. Donors praised her. On paper, she was a model executive. But Olivia hadn't come here to read papers. She'd come because of a phone call 6 months ago. A voice she hadn't heard in years, shaking so badly she could barely understand the words. "I can't do this anymore, Liv. I can't. I tried. I tried so hard. But they don't care. She doesn't care. And if I stay, I'm going to break." The line had gone dead before Olivia could respond. Her best friend from nursing school, someone who'd once talked about saving lives the way other people talked about religion, had quit 3 weeks later. No forwarding number, no explanation, just gone. Olivia had made 2 decisions that night. The first was to find out what had happened. The second was to make sure it never happened to anyone else. Lunchtime brought a brief lull. Olivia sat in the break room with a salad she didn't taste, half listening to the conversation at the next table. Swear to God, if she calls me in again for some bullshit performance review, just agree with whatever she says. It's easier. Easier? She wrote me up last month for something I didn't even do. Yeah, well, who are you going to complain to? HR reports to her. One of the nurses noticed Olivia listening and lowered her voice. The conversation shifted to something safer. Hospital gossip, shift schedules, nothing that mattered. Olivia finished her salad and threw the container away. On her way out, she passed a bulletin board covered in outdated memos and safety reminders. Tucked in the corner was a photo from a staff appreciation event. Smiling faces gathered around a cake, Veronica Hale front and center, arm around a nurse Olivia didn't recognize. The nurse in the photo wasn't smiling like the others. Her expression was stiff, forced. Olivia pulled out her phone and snapped a picture of the board. Then she went back to work. The first real test came 3 days later. Olivia was checking on a post-op patient in room 318 when the monitor started beeping. Not the steady rhythm of normal vitals, sharp, erratic spikes. The patient, a man in his 60s recovering from gallbladder surgery, was sweating, his breathing shallow. She hit the call button. "I need a doctor in 318, now." 30 seconds later, Dr. Lyle walked in, irritation already etched on his face. "What's the issue?" "BP's dropping, pulse is climbing. He's showing signs of internal bleeding." Lyle glanced at the monitor, then at the patient's chart. "He's post-op day 2. Some fluctuation is normal." "This isn't fluctuation. Look at the trend." "I am looking." Lyle's tone sharpened. "And I'm telling you it's within acceptable range. Increase his fluids and monitor him." Olivia didn't move. "With respect, doctor, his abdomen's rigid. He's guarding. If we wait, are you questioning my assessment?" The room went silent. The patient's eyes flicked between them, fear creeping into his expression. Olivia kept her voice level. "I'm asking you to recheck." Lyle's face flushed. "You've been here, what, a week? And you think you know better than a board-certified surgeon?" "I think a patient's life is worth 5 more minutes of your time." For a second, Lyle looked like he might explode. Then he turned to the patient, forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes, and said, "You're in good hands, Mr. Garrett. We'll keep a close watch." He walked out. Olivia stood there, staring at the monitor. The numbers were still wrong. She knew they were wrong. She also knew what happened to people who pushed too hard. But when Mr. Garrett looked at her with that quiet, desperate hope, she made a choice. She paged the attending surgeon directly. Passim. Dr. Ellison arrived 8 minutes later, took one look at the patient, and ordered an immediate CT scan. The results showed a slow bleed in the abdominal cavity, exactly what Olivia had suspected. Mr. Garrett was back in surgery within the hour. He survived. And Olivia became a problem. She didn't hear about it officially. Nobody called her into an office or sent a formal reprimand. But the next morning, when she arrived for her shift, the atmosphere had changed. Nurses who'd been friendly before suddenly found reasons to be busy. Brenda avoided eye contact. Dr. Lyle walked past her in the hallway without acknowledgement, his jaw tight. And at 10:15 a.m., her supervisor, a wiry, nervous man named Phil Torrens, pulled her aside. "You need to be careful," he said quietly. Olivia frowned. "I saved a patient's life." "I know, and that's great, really. But you also made a doctor look bad in front of staff, and word travels." "Word travels to who?" Phil hesitated, then, almost reluctantly, "Hale. Everything travels to Hale." Olivia studied him. "And what does she do with it?" Phil looked away. "Just watch yourself, okay?" Book. 2 days later, Olivia was reassigned. No explanation, just a schedule change that moved her from the ICU to the general med-surg floor. A demotion in everything but name. Longer hours, more grunt work, less autonomy. She didn't complain, didn't ask questions, she just showed up and did the job. But she also started keeping a journal. Every unsafe practice, every ignored protocol, every time a nurse was blamed for something that wasn't their fault. She wrote it down, cross-referenced it with incident reports, and built a timeline that was starting to show a pattern. A pattern that led straight to the top. The breaking point came on a Friday night. The hospital was understaffed. 2 call-outs, 1 unexpected admission, and a trauma case that tied up half the ER. Olivia was running between patients, barely keeping up, when she got flagged down by a frantic family member. "My mom, she's in 412. She's been asking for pain meds for an hour and nobody's come." Olivia checked the chart. The patient had been prescribed a low-dose opioid post-surgery, but the order was marked "Hold pending physician review." That review should have happened 3 hours ago. She paged the on-call doctor. No response. She tried again. Still nothing. The patient was crying now, clutching her side, her daughter pleading with Olivia to do something. Olivia made a decision. She called the attending directly, bypassing the on-call system entirely, explained the situation, got verbal approval to administer the medication. The patient's pain eased within minutes. Her daughter hugged Olivia, tears streaming. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Olivia squeezed her hand. "She's going to be okay." But when she turned around, Veronica Hale was standing in the hallway. Bersenk. Hale was tall, taller than Olivia remembered from the photos, with sharp features and a gaze that could strip paint. She wore a charcoal suit, perfectly tailored, and heels that clicked like a countdown when she walked. She didn't say anything at first, just looked at Olivia with the kind of cold appraisal usually reserved for things you were about to throw away. Then, in a voice that carried just far enough, "My office. Now." The office was exactly what Olivia expected. Sleek, minimalist, everything in its place, a wall of commendations and framed photos showing Veronica shaking hands with politicians, donors, hospital board members, a desk so clean it looked like it had never been used. Hale didn't sit. She stood behind the desk, arms crossed, and stared Olivia down. "Do you know how many rules you just broke?" Olivia kept her voice steady. "I followed protocol. The patient needed pain management. I got approval from—" "You bypassed the chain of command. The chain of command wasn't responding. That's not your call to make." Olivia met her gaze. "If I'd waited, that patient would have suffered for no reason." Hale's expression didn't change. "You've been here 2 weeks. In that time, you've questioned a surgeon, violated scheduling procedures, and now this. Do you have any idea how disruptive that is?" "Disruptive to who?" The temperature in the room dropped. Hale leaned forward, palms flat on the desk. "To the functioning of this hospital. To the staff who've been here years and understand how things work. To the people who actually know what they're doing." Olivia didn't blink. "If how things work means patients suffer while we follow red tape, then maybe it's time things work differently." For a long, dangerous moment, neither of them moved. Then Hale smiled. It was the kind of smile that didn't touch her eyes. "You're reassigned." "Effective immediately. Night shift. Oncology wing." Olivia's stomach tightened. Night shift oncology was where they sent people they wanted to quit. Understaffed, emotionally brutal, and isolated from the rest of the hospital. An exile dressed up as a schedule change. "Understood," Olivia said quietly. Hale straightened. "Good. Then we're done here." Olivia turned to leave. She was halfway to the door when Hale's voice cut through the silence. "One more thing." Olivia stopped. "The next time you think you're smarter than the people running this place?" Hale's tone was ice. "Remember what happened to the last person who tried?" Olivia looked back. "What happened to them?" Hale's smile widened. "They're not here anymore." Olivia worked the night shift without complaint. She showed up on time, did her rounds, and kept her head down exactly the way Brenda had warned her to. But she also kept writing. Every incident, every name, every date. And late at night, when the hospital was quiet and the halls were empty, she started asking questions. Carefully. Quietly. A nurse who'd been written up for reporting a medication error, Olivia asked what really happened. A resident who'd been blamed for a patient death, Olivia asked if they'd been given the resources they needed. A custodian who'd worked there for 15 years, Olivia asked what he'd seen. The answer started to form a picture. Not just incompetence, not just bad management, something deliberate. Chassis. 3 weeks into her exile, Olivia was restocking supplies in the oncology wing when her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're asking the wrong questions. Meet me. Parking garage, level 3, midnight." Olivia stared at the screen. Then she deleted the message and went back to work. But at 11:55 p.m., she found herself walking toward the parking garage. Level 3 was nearly empty. Just a few scattered cars and the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. A figure stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. Brenda. She looked worse than she had weeks ago. Thinner, shadows under her eyes, hands shaking as she clutched a folder to her chest. "I shouldn't be doing this," she said. Olivia waited. Brenda glanced around, then shoved the folder into Olivia's hands. This is everything I could grab without getting caught. Incident reports that were buried, complaints that disappeared, names of people who were forced out. Olivia opened the folder, page after page of documentation, patterns she'd suspected but couldn't prove. Why now? Olivia asked. Brenda's voice cracked. Because I'm done watching people get destroyed. I'm done being afraid. Then why not go to the board yourself? Because they won't listen to me. I'm nobody. But you? Brenda's eyes were bright with something between hope and desperation. You're different. I don't know how, but you are. Olivia closed the folder. If I use this, she'll know it came from someone inside. I know. She'll come after you. I know. Brenda's voice was steady now. But if we don't stop her, she'll just keep going, and the next person she breaks might not survive it. Olivia looked at the folder in her hands, then at Brenda. Thank you, she said quietly. Brenda nodded, wiped her eyes, and walked away without another word. Olivia didn't go home that night. She sat in her car, reading every document, cross-referencing it with her own notes. By the time the sun came up, she had a case. A real, undeniable case. But she also knew that Veronica Hale didn't play by normal rules. Evidence wasn't enough. The board was under her influence. HR reported to her. The people who could stop her were the same people who benefited from her being in power. If Olivia wanted justice, she couldn't go through the system. She had to break it first. But the plan started small. Olivia began documenting everything in real time, taking photos of schedule violations, recording unsafe staffing decisions, logging every time a complaint was ignored. She built a digital trail that couldn't be erased or buried, and then she started talking. Not to administrators, not to HR, to patients. She told them their rights, explained what questions to ask, gave them the language to advocate for themselves. And when families started filing formal complaints that had to be addressed publicly, the cracks in Hale's armor started to show. It took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of late nights, careful planning, and walking a razor's edge between exposure and action. And then on a Wednesday afternoon, everything detonated. A patient died. Not unusual in a hospital. But this one was different. The patient, a woman named Laura Finch, had been admitted for a routine procedure. The surgery went fine. Recovery was textbook. And then, suddenly, she crashed. The official report blamed a post-op complication. Unpredictable. Unavoidable. But Olivia had been on shift that night. She'd seen the medication orders. She'd watched the attending fumble the response. And she knew the truth. Laura Finch died because someone made a mistake. And instead of admitting it, they'd covered it up. When the family demanded answers, Hale personally handled the response. Sympathetic, professional, untouchable. These things happen, she told them. Medicine isn't perfect. The family accepted it. The case was closed. And Olivia decided she was done waiting. She walked into Hale's office without an appointment. Hale looked up from her desk, annoyance flashing across her face. I don't have time for... Laura Finch didn't have to die. Hale froze. Olivia stepped inside and closed the door. The attending made a mistake, a fixable one. But instead of correcting it, someone altered the medication log and buried the incident report. That's a serious accusation. It's a fact. Olivia pulled a USB drive from her pocket and set it on the desk. I have the original records, the timestamps, the names. Hale stared at the drive like it was a live grenade. What do you want? She asked quietly. I want you to do the right thing. Hale laughed, actually laughed. The right thing? Do you have any idea how many people I've had to clean up after? How many mistakes I've buried to keep this place running? That's not your job. It's exactly my job. Hale stood, her voice rising. You think hospitals run on ideals? On fairness? They run on money and reputation and making sure the people who matter stay happy. And if that means a few people get hurt along the way, then that's the cost. Olivia's voice was cold. Laura Finch wasn't a cost. She was a person. And she's dead. Hale's smile was vicious. And nothing you do will change that. Olivia picked up the USB drive. You're right, she said. But it'll change what happens next. She turned to leave. Hale's voice cracked like a whip. If you walk out that door with that drive, I will destroy you. I will make sure you never work in healthcare again. I will. Olivia stopped, looked back. No, she said quietly. You won't. And she walked out. 20 minutes later, Olivia was in the parking lot when her phone buzzed. A text from Brenda. She knows. Be careful. Olivia didn't reply. She got in her car, locked the doors, and started the engine. But before she could pull out, another car screeched to a stop behind her, blocking her in. Hale climbed out, her face twisted with rage. And behind her, 2 security guards. Tisaub. Olivia stepped out of her car slowly, hands visible. This is private property, Hale said, her voice shaking with fury. You're trespassing. I work here. Not anymore. Hale turned to the guards. Escort her off the premises. If she resists, call the police. One of the guards hesitated. Ma'am, I don't think, now. Olivia didn't move. She just looked at Hale, calm and unflinching. You're making a mistake, she said. Hale stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. The mistake was hiring you in the first place. The guards moved forward, and that's when Olivia's phone rang. She answered it without breaking eye contact. Olivia Kane. A voice crackled through the speaker, sharp, authoritative, unmistakable. Captain Kane, we have a situation. I need you back at base. Immediately. Hale's expression shifted. Confusion. Then something close to fear. Olivia ended the call. Captain, one of the guards said slowly. Hale's face went pale, and in the distance, the sound of helicopter rotors began to thud against the sky. The helicopter came in low over the east parking structure, rotors hammering the air hard enough to rattle car windows. It wasn't a news chopper or medical transport. This was military, matte black with no visible markings, the kind that didn't ask permission before it landed. Hale took a step back, her hand flying up to shield her face from the downdraft. The security guards froze, uncertain whether to advance or retreat. Olivia didn't move. She just stood there, phone still in her hand, watching the aircraft settle onto the painted asphalt 30 yards away. The rotors began to slow. The side door slid open. 3 figures emerged, 2 in tactical gear, rifles slung across their chests, and one in a crisp Air Force uniform with enough ribbons on his chest to make even a hospital administrator nervous. He moved with the kind of purpose that didn't acknowledge obstacles, his boots hitting the ground in sharp, even strides. He walked straight past Hale without a glance. Captain Kane, he said, his voice clipped and formal. Olivia straightened slightly. Not quite attention, but close. Colonel? The man, Colonel Raymond Voss, according to the name tape on his uniform, scanned the parking lot, taking in Hale, the guards, the tension hanging thick in the air. His expression didn't change. We have a critical deployment. You're needed immediately. I'm off duty, sir. As of 20 minutes ago, you're reactivated. Orders came down from Northcom. There's been an incident at Peterson Space Force Base, classified, time-sensitive, and they specifically requested a combat medic with your clearance level. He paused. That's you. Hale finally found her voice. Excuse me, this woman is hospital staff. She doesn't just leave. Voss turned to her, and the look he gave could have frozen lava. Ma'am, with respect, Captain Kane is a reservist with the United States Air Force. When she receives activation orders, civilian employment becomes secondary. If you have concerns, you can take them up with the base commander. He pulled a folded document from his jacket and held it out. Her orders. Hale didn't take the paper. She just stared at Olivia, her face shifting through a dozen emotions: shock, confusion, rage, fear, before settling on something cold and calculating. You lied, she said quietly, on your application. You never disclosed. I disclosed everything required by law, Olivia said. Her voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. My reserve status, my clearance, my availability for activation, it's all in my file. You just didn't bother to read it. One of the guards cleared his throat. Ma'am, if she's military, she's a nurse, Hale snapped. She works for me. Voss stepped between them, his tone dropping to something quieter and infinitely more dangerous. She holds the rank of captain in the United States Air Force Medical Service Corps. She's completed 2 combat deployments, one to Afghanistan and one to Iraq, with commendations for valor under fire. And right now she's needed for a mission that you don't have the clearance to know about. He glanced at Olivia. Captain, your wheel's up in 15. Grab what you need. Olivia nodded once. She turned back to her car, popped the trunk, and pulled out a go-bag that had been sitting there since the day she'd started at Redwood Crest. Compact, pre-packed, ready. She slung it over her shoulder and walked toward the helicopter without looking back. Hale's voice cut through the noise of the rotors. This isn't over. Olivia stopped, turned. You're right, she said. It's not. Then she climbed into the helicopter, and the door slid shut behind her. The flight took 11 minutes. Olivia sat in the jump seat, harnessed tight across her chest, staring out the small window as Denver fell away beneath them. Voss sat across from her, reviewing something on a tablet. The two tactical operators flanking him didn't speak. Finally, Voss looked up. You're probably wondering what the hell this is about. Olivia met his gaze. I figured you'd tell me when you were ready. He almost smiled, still direct as ever. He tapped the tablet, and the screen shifted to show a satellite image of a military installation, rows of buildings, vehicle depots, antenna arrays. Peterson's been on lockdown for the past 6 hours. Chemical exposure incident in one of the underground research wings. 12 personnel affected, 3 critical. The base hospital is equipped for trauma, not toxicology, and the closest civilian facility with the right equipment is 2 hours away by ground transport. So you need a transfer. We need someone who can stabilize them in a hostile environment and make the call on who moves first. The exposure site isn't fully contained yet. Anyone going in needs CBRN training and field experience. He paused. Your file says you ran triage in Kandahar after a sarin attack. Olivia's jaw tightened. That was 8 years ago. Muscle memory doesn't forget. She didn't argue. He wasn't wrong. The helicopter banked hard. And through the window, Olivia caught sight of Peterson's sprawling complex, miles of runways, hangars, blast-proof bunkers, the kind of place that didn't show up on tourist maps. Voss leaned forward. One more thing. This mission is strictly need to know. Whatever you see in there, whatever you hear, it stays locked. Understood? Understood. Good. He glanced at the pilots. ETA 2 minutes. Olivia tightened her harness and tried not to think about the look on Hale's face when the helicopter had landed. The shock. The anger, the fear. Because Hale had built her power on control, on knowing everyone's weaknesses, on being the scariest person in the room. And for the first time in years, she'd encountered someone she couldn't intimidate, someone who didn't need her approval, someone who'd been playing a completely different game all along. The helicopter touched down on a restricted tarmac surrounded by chain link and razor wire. The moment the skids hit concrete, Olivia was moving, unfastening her harness, shouldering her bag, stepping out into the controlled chaos of a base in crisis mode. Personnel in hazmat suits moved between vehicles. Decontamination tents had been erected near a bunker entrance, their plastic walls rippling in the wind. Officers shouted orders into radios. Somewhere in the distance, an alarm blared in short staccato bursts. A woman in a colonel's uniform strode toward them, her face grim. Captain Kane? Yes, ma'am? Colonel Diane Pruitt, base medical director. We've got a situation. She gestured toward the bunker. The affected personnel are in a sealed wing 2 levels down. We've managed to vent most of the contaminated air, but we're still reading trace chemicals in the ventilation system. Anyone going in needs full protective gear and limited exposure time, 20 minutes max. What's the agent? Olivia asked. Pruitt hesitated. Still being identified. Early indicators suggest an organophosphate compound, possibly experimental. Symptoms include respiratory distress, convulsions, altered mental status. We've administered atropine, but it's not fully effective. Olivia's mind started running scenarios. Organophosphates attack the nervous system, similar to nerve gas but often slower acting. If atropine wasn't working, they were dealing with something modified, something designed to resist standard countermeasures. I'll need a full chem panel on each patient, Olivia said. Blood work, vitals, exposure timeline, and someone who knows the facility layout. Pruitt nodded to a young airman standing nearby. Sergeant Kowalski will get you suited up and brief you on the approach. Move fast, Captain. We've already lost one. Olivia's chest tightened. Understood. The decontamination area smelled like industrial disinfectant and fear. Olivia stripped down to her base layer and stepped into the hazmat suit, thick, cumbersome, with a self-contained breathing apparatus that hissed softly as she sealed the helmet. Kowalski checked her seals twice, his hands shaking slightly. "You done this before?" Olivia asked, her voice muffled through the helmet's comm system. "Training only, ma'am." "Then stay close and do exactly what I say." He nodded, his face pale behind his visor. They entered the bunker through a reinforced airlock, the heavy door grinding shut behind them with a sound like a vault closing. The air inside was stale, filtered, wrong. Emergency lighting cast everything in sickly yellow. Their boots echoed on concrete as they descended a steep stairwell, deeper into the earth. 2 levels down, they reached another airlock. Beyond it, Olivia could see figures lying on gurneys, some moving weakly, others completely still. Medical personnel in hazmat gear worked frantically, shouting updates to each other through helmet radios. Olivia stepped through. The first thing that hit her was the smell. Even through the suit's filters, she caught the faint, acrid tang of chemicals mixed with sweat and vomit. The second thing was the sound. Labored breathing, someone crying, the steady beep of monitors tracking vitals that were nowhere near stable. She moved to the nearest patient, a man in his 30s, skin gray, pupils constricted to pinpoints. His breathing was shallow, ragged. She checked the chart clipped to his gurney. Atropine administered, dosage appropriate. No improvement. She moved to the next patient. Same story. And the next. Whatever this compound was, it wasn't responding to conventional treatment. Olivia pulled Kowalski aside. "I need samples, blood, gastric, whatever we can get. And I need them analyzed now, not later, now. There's a field lab 1 level up. Then go, move." Kowalski sprinted toward the airlock. Olivia turned back to the patients. 12 total, just like Voss had said. 3 were critical, barely breathing, seizing intermittently, unresponsive to stimuli. The others were stable but deteriorating. She began triage, working methodically, pushing down the part of her brain that wanted to panic. This was what she'd trained for. This was what she'd done. In places where the walls shook from mortar fire and the wounded kept coming no matter how fast you worked. But those had been blast injuries, bullet wounds, things you could see and fix. This was invisible, insidious, and it was winning. Kowalski returned 14 minutes later with preliminary results. Olivia scanned the printout, her pulse quickening. The compound wasn't just an organophosphate. It was a hybrid, something engineered to bind to acetylcholinesterase receptors in a way that standard antidotes couldn't reverse. The atropine was treating symptoms, but it wasn't addressing the root cause. "We need pralidoxim," Olivia said. "High-dose IV push, and we need it 5 minutes ago." One of the other medics looked up. "We're out. Used the last vial an hour ago." Olivia's mind raced. Pralidoxim was a specific antidote for organophosphate poisoning, but it wasn't something most facilities kept in large quantities. If Peterson didn't have it... "Where's the nearest stockpile?" she asked Pruitt over the radio. Static crackled. Then Pruitt's voice, tight with frustration. "Buckley Space Force Base, 40 minutes by air." 40 minutes. The critical patients didn't have 40 minutes. Olivia stared at the man on the gurney in front of her, his chest barely rising. He was maybe 25. Wedding ring on his left hand. She made a decision. "Get me a direct line to Buckley's pharmacy. I'll walk them through a modified dosing protocol using what we have on hand. It won't be perfect, but it'll buy us time." Pruitt didn't hesitate. "Done. Link incoming." For the next 30 minutes, Olivia worked faster than she'd ever worked in her life. She coordinated with Buckley's medical team, jury-rigged a treatment protocol using a combination of atropine, diazepam, and a calcium channel blocker that might slow the compound's neurological effects, and personally administered the first doses to the 3 critical patients. 2 of them stabilized. The 3rd didn't make it. Olivia stepped back from the gurney, her gloved hands trembling, and watched as another medic pulled a sheet over the young airman's face. His name tape read Martinez. 23 years old, according to his chart. Married 8 months. She stood there for a second longer than she should have, forcing herself to memorize his face. Not because she wanted to, because she owed him that much. "Captain," Pruitt's voice crackled in her helmet. Transport's inbound with the pralidoxime. ETA 8 minutes. Can you hold until then? Olivia looked at the remaining patients. Their vitals were holding, not improving, but not crashing. We'll hold, she said. And they did. The pralidoxime arrived in a heavily escorted transport, delivered by 2 airmen who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Olivia administered it herself, watching the monitors as the antidote began to reverse the nerve agent's effects. Slowly. Too slowly for comfort, but enough. By the time the last patient stabilized, Olivia's timer showed she'd been in the contaminated zone for 42 minutes, more than double the recommended exposure limit. Her suit's filters were probably compromised. Her own body had absorbed trace amounts of the chemical through sheer proximity. But all 11 remaining patients were alive. The decontamination process took another hour. Olivia stood under chemical showers that stripped her skin raw, then submitted to blood tests and a full physical exam. Pruitt watched from behind a glass partition, arms crossed, expression unreadable. When Olivia finally emerged, clean, exhausted, wearing borrowed BDS that didn't quite fit, Pruitt was waiting with a bottle of water and a protein bar. 11 out of 12, Pruitt said. Martinez's family has been notified. They want to know who tried to save him. Olivia took the water but didn't open it. Tell them I'm sorry it wasn't enough. That's not what they asked. Olivia met her eyes. Then tell them I did everything I could. Pruitt studied her for a long moment, then she nodded. I'm putting in a commendation. What you did in there. Most people would have called it and waited for backup. Most people weren't trained in Kandahar. No, they weren't. Pruitt paused. Voss mentioned you're working civilian now. Redwood Crest Medical Center. Olivia's jaw tightened slightly. I was. It's complicated. Pruitt's expression shifted. Not quite a smile, but close. Captain, I've been in the Air Force for 26 years. I know complicated, and I know when someone's getting screwed. She pulled a business card from her pocket and held it out. If you need support, official or otherwise, you call me. Directly. Olivia took the card. Thank you, ma'am. Don't thank me yet. Just don't let whoever's giving you trouble think they've won. Pruitt's voice dropped. People like us, we don't quit. We regroup. By the time Olivia left Peterson, the sun had set. Voss offered her a ride back to Denver in the same helicopter that had extracted her, but she declined. She needed time to think, time to process, time to figure out what the hell she was walking back into. She caught a military shuttle to the civilian side of the base, then called a rideshare that took 40 minutes to arrive. The driver didn't ask questions, which was good, because Olivia didn't have answers she could give. She sat in the back seat, staring at her phone. 3 missed calls from unknown numbers, 2 voicemails, and a text from earlier that she'd ignored in the chaos. She opened the text. You think you won today? You didn't. Check your email. Olivia's stomach dropped. She pulled up her email, scrolling past automated messages and hospital memos until she found one with no subject line, sent 6 hours ago, right around the time she'd been wrist-deep in a chemical contamination zone. She opened it. It was a termination notice, effective immediately, signed by Veronica Hale. The listed reason? Violation of employment contract, failure to disclose conflicting obligations, and unauthorized absence during scheduled shift. Olivia read it twice, her jaw tightening. Hale had moved fast. Faster than Olivia expected. But the email wasn't what made her hands curl into fists. It was the attachment, a scanned document, pages from Olivia's personnel file, not the official one HR kept. A different file, one that included notes on every interaction she'd had with staff, every question she'd asked, every patient she'd flagged. And at the bottom, in Hale's handwriting, potential threat, monitor closely, prepare contingencies. Hale had been watching her from the beginning, had known, or at least suspected, that Olivia wasn't just another nurse, and now she was trying to erase her. Olivia's phone buzzed again. Another text, same unknown number. You're done. I've already notified the board. By morning, no one will hire you, not in Denver, not anywhere. Olivia stared at the screen, her pulse steady despite the rage building in her chest. Then she did something Hale wouldn't expect. She smiled, because Hale had just made a critical mistake. She'd assumed Olivia was playing defense, but Olivia had been building an offense for months. She dialed a number she'd memorized years ago and hadn't called since. It rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. "Kane, didn't expect to hear from you." "Mara," Olivia said. "I need a favor." Mara Delgado, investigative journalist, former Army intelligence, and the only person Olivia trusted with information that could burn the wrong people. They'd met in Kabul, bonded over late-night coffee and a shared intolerance for corruption, and stayed in loose contact ever since. "What kind of favor?" Mara asked, her tone shifting to business. "The kind that ends a career." There was a pause, then, "I'm listening." Olivia laid it all out. The documentation, the buried complaints, the pattern of abuse spanning years, Laura Finch's death and the cover-up that followed, the retaliation against staff who spoke up, the shadow personnel file Hale kept on anyone she considered a threat, and now the illegal termination. When she finished, Mara was silent for a long moment. "Jesus," she finally said, "you've got enough here to blow the whole place open." "I know, but I need it done right. If she gets wind of this before it's airtight, she'll bury it and come after everyone who helped me. So we go nuclear. Full investigation, anonymous sources protected. I've got contacts at the Denver Post and a producer at Channel 9 who owes me. We can have this on the front page and the evening news simultaneously." Olivia hesitated. "If we do this, people are going to get hurt. Staff who were complicit, doctors who looked the other way." "Good. They should be." Mara's voice hardened. "You didn't start this, Kane. You're just finishing it." Olivia closed her eyes. "How long?" 72 hours. Maybe less if I can get corroboration from your inside source. Brenda Moss, she's the one who gave me the original files. Then I'll reach out. Carefully." Mara paused. "You sure about this?" "Once we publish, there's no taking it back." Olivia thought about Martinez, lying under a sheet in a bunker 2 hours ago, about Laura Finch, about the nurse who'd called her 6 months ago, voice breaking, saying she couldn't do it anymore, about every person who'd ever been crushed under Hale's heel because no one had the power to stop her. "I'm sure," Olivia said. "All right, I'll be in touch." The line went dead. Olivia sat in the back of the rideshare as it wound through Denver's darkened streets, staring at the termination email on her phone. Hale thought she'd won, thought firing Olivia would end it. But Olivia hadn't spent 8 years in combat zones learning how to quit. She'd learned how to fight smart. And she'd learned that the best way to take down an enemy wasn't to meet them head on. It was to let them think they were winning right up until the moment they lost everything. The rideshare dropped her at a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of the city. Olivia ordered coffee she didn't drink and opened her laptop at a corner booth. Then she started uploading every document, every photo, every piece of evidence to a secure cloud server with instructions to auto-release to multiple journalists if she didn't check in every 12 hours. A dead man's switch. If Hale came after her, if something happened, the story would break anyway. By the time she finished, it was past 1 in the morning. She closed the laptop, left cash on the table, and walked back to her car in the empty parking lot. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mara. "Just talk to your source. She's scared, but she's in. Sending me files tonight. This is going to be big, Kane, real big." Olivia allowed herself a small, grim smile. Then another text came through, different number, one she recognized. Brenda. "She knows. She just called me into her office for tomorrow morning. What do I do?" Olivia's pulse spiked. She dialed Brenda immediately. It rang and rang, voicemail. She tried again. Still nothing. She sat there, gripping the phone, a sick feeling spreading through her chest. Then a third text arrived, same number as before. But the message made Olivia's blood run cold. "This is Veronica. Brenda can't come to the phone right now, but you and I should talk. Meet me at the hospital, 1 hour. Come alone, or I press charges against her for theft of confidential documents. Your choice, Captain." Olivia read it 3 times, her mind racing through scenarios. Hale had Brenda, or at least had access to her phone, which meant she knew about the journalist, knew about the files, knew that Olivia had just lit a fuse that would burn straight back to her. And now she was daring Olivia to walk into a trap. Olivia looked at the time, 1:23 a.m. The hospital would be operating on skeleton crew. Minimal witnesses, maximum control. Every tactical instinct she had screamed at her not to go, but Brenda had risked everything to help her, had handed over files knowing exactly what Hale would do if she found out. Olivia couldn't leave her hanging. She typed back, "I'm coming, don't touch her." The response came 30 seconds later. "Second floor, administrator wing, door will be unlocked. You have 58 minutes. Olivia started the car. The drive back to Redwood Crest took 22 minutes. Olivia parked in the visitor lot instead of the employee garage, kept her phone on, and sent a quick text to Mara with her location and a simple instruction. "If you don't hear from me in 2 hours, publish everything." Mara's response was immediate. "Copy. Be careful." Olivia pocketed the phone and walked toward the main entrance. The lobby was empty except for a single security guard at the desk, half asleep, barely glancing up as she passed. She took the stairs instead of the elevator, moving quietly, listening. The second floor was darker than usual. Half the overhead lights were off, casting long shadows across the hallway. Olivia could hear the distant beep of monitors from patient rooms, the soft murmur of a nurse somewhere out of sight. She reached the administrator wing. The door was unlocked, just like Hale had promised. Olivia pushed it open. The hallway beyond was empty. Offices on either side, doors closed, nameplates gleaming in the dim light. At the far end, one door stood open, light spilling out. Hale's office. Olivia walked toward it, every nerve on high alert. She reached the doorway and looked inside. Veronica Hale sat behind her desk, perfectly composed, hands folded in front of her. She wore the same charcoal suit from earlier, not a thread out of place. Her expression was calm, almost pleasant. Brenda sat in a chair across from her, pale and shaking, her eyes red-rimmed. "Captain Kane," Hale said smoothly, "right on time." Olivia stepped inside but didn't sit. "Let her go." "In a moment. First, we're going to have a conversation." "There's nothing to talk about." Hale's smile didn't waver. "Oh, I think there is. You see, Brenda here was just explaining to me how she came to be in possession of confidential hospital documents. Documents that, coincidentally, ended up in the hands of a journalist." Olivia glanced at Brenda, whose face crumpled. "I'm sorry," Brenda whispered. She said she'd file charges. Said I'd lose my license. I couldn't." "It's okay," Olivia said quietly. "No," Hale cut in. "It's really not." She leaned back in her chair. "Theft of hospital property. Violation of HIPAA. Breach of confidentiality. I could have her arrested tonight, or—" She paused. "We could make a deal." Olivia's jaw tightened. "What kind of deal?" "You walk away, quietly. You tell your journalist friend the story's dead. You disappear from Denver and never come back." Hale's eyes glittered. "And in return, I don't destroy Brenda's life." "You're bluffing. You press charges, everything comes out in discovery. Maybe, maybe not. But by the time it gets that far, Brenda will be bankrupt from legal fees and blacklisted from every hospital in the state." Hale's voice dropped. "Is that really a risk you want to take?" Olivia looked at Brenda, shaking, terrified, tears streaming down her face. Then she looked back at Hale. "No deal," Olivia said. Hale's smile faltered. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. No deal." Olivia stepped closer. "You think I didn't plan for this? You think I walked in here without insurance?" "What are you talking about?" Olivia pulled out her phone and held it up so Hale could see the screen. "Everything you've done, every buried complaint, every forced resignation, every illegal retaliation is already in the hands of 3 separate journalists. If I don't check in every 12 hours, it auto-publishes. To the Post, to Channel 9, to a legal advocacy group that specializes in whistleblower protection." Hale's face went white. "So here's the real deal," Olivia continued, her voice hard. "You let Brenda walk out of here right now. You don't file charges. You don't retaliate. And maybe I convince them to hold the story long enough for you to resign quietly instead of getting dragged out in handcuffs." The room was silent. Then Hale stood, her hands flat on the desk, her composure finally cracking. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," she hissed. "Yeah," Olivia said, "I do." For a long, tense moment, they stared at each other. Then Brenda's phone buzzed. All 3 of them looked at it. Brenda picked it up with shaking hands, read the screen, and went even paler. "What?" Hale snapped. Brenda's voice was barely a whisper. It's a news alert. Channel 9 just posted a breaking story. Olivia's stomach dropped. Hale snatched the phone and read the screen. Her expression shifted from confusion to rage to something close to panic. "What did you do?" she breathed. Olivia grabbed the phone and read it herself. The headline, Redwood Crest Medical Center under investigation for systemic patient safety violations and staff retaliation. Below it, a photo of the hospital, and a brief summary promising a full investigative report at 6 a.m. Mara had moved early. Olivia looked up at Hale, whose hands were trembling now. "I told you," Olivia said quietly. "This isn't over." And then, from somewhere down the hall, came the sound of footsteps. Multiple sets. Heavy. Official. Olivia turned toward the door just as 3 figures appeared in the hallway. 2 uniformed police officers, and behind them, a woman in a dark blazer with an ID badge clipped to her belt. Colorado Department of Public Health. Investigations Division. The woman looked at Hale. "Veronica Hale?" Hale didn't answer. "We have a warrant to seize hospital records related to patient safety incidents and staff complaints dating back 5 years. You're required to cooperate fully or face obstruction charges." The investigator's voice was flat, professional. "We'll also need to speak with you, voluntarily for now." Hale's mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. One of the officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us." And just like that, the woman who'd ruled Redwood Crest through fear and control was being led out of her own office, her face ashen, her hands shaking. Brenda stood, her legs barely holding her up. Olivia caught her before she fell. "It's over," Olivia said softly. "You're safe." Brenda sobbed into her shoulder, the kind of deep, shuddering relief that comes from months of terror finally breaking. And Olivia stood there, holding her, watching through the office window as Veronica Hale disappeared down the hallway. But even as the adrenaline started to fade, Olivia's instincts were screaming that something was wrong, because Hale hadn't fought back, hadn't argued, hadn't done any of the things someone with her resources and connections should have done. She'd just folded too easily. Olivia's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Hale was a puppet. Now you've pissed off the people holding the strings." Olivia's blood went cold, and somewhere in the hospital, a fire alarm began to scream. The fire alarm shrieked through the hospital like something alive and angry. Olivia's hand went to Brenda's arm, steadying her as the overhead strobes kicked in, washing the hallway in alternating darkness and blinding white. "We need to move," Olivia said. Brenda's eyes were wide, unfocused. "What's happening?" "I don't know, but we're not staying here to find out." They stepped into the hallway. The investigator and the 2 officers had already disappeared, probably heading for the exits with everyone else. Hospital protocol during fire alarms was clear. Evacuate non-essential personnel, secure patients, wait for all clear. But something about this felt wrong. The timing was too perfect, too convenient. Olivia pulled out her phone to call Mara. No signal. She tried again. Still nothing. "Do you have service?" she asked Brenda. Brenda checked her phone and shook her head. "No bars." A jammer. Someone was blocking communications inside the building. Olivia's training kicked in, the same cold, analytical part of her brain that had kept her alive in Kandahar when the mortars started falling. She assessed the situation in seconds. Unknown threat, communications down, limited visibility, potential hostile actors. The smart move was to get out, fast. But as they moved toward the stairwell, Olivia heard something that stopped her cold. Screaming. Not the general panic of an evacuation. This was different, closer, coming from the patient wing. Brenda heard it too. "Oh God." Olivia was already running. But see, she burst through the double doors into the med-surg wing and nearly collided with a nurse sprinting the other direction. The woman's scrubs were splattered with blood, her face sheet white. "What happened?" Olivia grabbed her shoulders. "Room 214, he went crazy." The nurse was hyperventilating, barely coherent. "Started attacking everyone. We couldn't stop him." "Who went crazy?" "Mr. Davison, post-op day 3. He was fine an hour ago," and then another scream cut through the alarm. Olivia released the nurse and ran toward room 214. The door was open. Inside, chaos. A patient, mid-50s, hospital gown soaked with sweat, had a nurse pinned against the wall, his hands around her throat. Another staff member was on the floor, bleeding from a gash on her forehead. Medical equipment was scattered everywhere. An IV pole overturned, monitors beeping frantically. Olivia didn't hesitate. She crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbed the patient's arm, and applied pressure to a nerve cluster near his elbow. His grip loosened. She swept his legs and brought him down in a controlled fall, keeping him from hitting his head on the tile. He thrashed, trying to get up, his eyes wild and unfocused. "Get me restraints," Olivia barked at Brenda, who'd followed her in. "And check her vitals." She nodded toward the nurse who'd been choked. Brenda moved on autopilot, muscle memory from years of nursing taking over. Olivia held the patient down, her knee pressed against his shoulder, her hands controlling his wrists. Up close, she could see his pupils were blown, massive, black, swallowing the iris. His skin was burning up, and his breath smelled wrong. Chemical. Familiar. She'd smelled it before, in the bunker at Peterson. Her stomach dropped. "Brenda," she said, keeping her voice level, "I need you to find out what medications this patient received in the last 12 hours, right now." "What? Why?" "Just do it." Brenda grabbed the chart from the overturned table and started flipping through pages, her hands shaking. Post-op antibiotics, pain management, IV fluids." "What kind of pain management?" Morphine sulfate administered at..." "Oh, God." "What?" Brenda's face went pale. "It says here he received 50 milligrams IV push at 11 p.m. That's 5 times the normal dose." Olivia's blood went cold. "Who administered it?" Brenda checked the signature line. "It's not signed, just initialed. VH. Veronica Hale." Before Olivia could process that, the patient under her went rigid, his back arching, his entire body seizing. Foam appeared at the corners of his mouth. "He's seizing!" Brenda dropped the chart. "What do we—" "Get me diazepam, 5 milligrams IV, and call a code." Olivia shifted her weight, turning the patient onto his side to protect his airway. Brenda ran. Olivia held the seizing man as gently as she could, watching the seconds tick by. 15 seconds, 20, 30. The seizure showed no signs of stopping. This wasn't just an overdose. This was something else, something deliberate. Brenda returned with the medication in a crash cart. Olivia administered the diazepam, waited. The seizure slowed, stopped. The patient's breathing was shallow but present. His pulse was thready but detectable. "He's stable," Olivia said. "For now." The nurse who'd been attacked was sitting against the wall, rubbing her throat, her eyes streaming tears. The other staff member had a concussion but was conscious. Olivia stood, her mind racing. Hale had been in this room, had administered a massive overdose, had essentially poisoned a patient. But why? To cause chaos during the investigation? To destroy evidence? Or— The thought hit her like a freight train. To send a message. Her phone buzzed. Signal was back. A text from the same unknown number as before. "You wanted to expose corruption? Congratulations. Now everyone in that hospital is a potential casualty. Every patient, every nurse, every dose could be the wrong one. Can you save them all, Captain?" Olivia's hands clenched around the phone. Another text? "You have 2 hours to withdraw the story and disappear. Or we start making this a lot worse." She looked at Brenda, who was staring at her with wide, terrified eyes. "What is it?" Brenda whispered. Olivia didn't answer. She was already dialing Mara. Mara picked up on this first ring. "Kane, what the hell is going on? I'm seeing reports of a fire alarm at Redwood Crest." "It's not a fire. Someone's sabotaging the hospital. They just overdosed a patient and they're threatening to do worse if we don't kill the story." Silence. Then, "Jesus Christ, have you called the police?" "Police were here. They left when the alarm went off. I don't know who to trust." "You think someone inside is helping them?" "I think Hale wasn't working alone. And whoever she was working for has more resources than I anticipated." Mara exhaled slowly. Okay. What do you need?" "I need you to publish everything, right now. Don't wait for morning. If this story goes live, they lose their leverage." "Kane, if I publish now, they might escalate. If you don't publish, they'll keep doing this until someone dies. Or until I back down. And I'm not backing down. Another pause. Then, all right, I'll push it live in 20 minutes. But Kane, be careful. These people are playing for keeps. So am I. Olivia hung up. Brenda was still staring at her. What do we do? We lock down every medication cabinet in this hospital. We verify every single dose that goes out, and we make sure no one else gets hurt. That's impossible. We're understaffed as it is, and with the alarm, then we get help. Olivia pulled up her recent calls and dialed Colonel Pruitt. Pruitt answered on the second ring, her voice sharp. Kane, it's 2 a.m. I need military police at Redwood Crest Medical Center. Now. What? Someone's sabotaging the hospital, overdosing patients, threatening mass casualties if I don't kill the investigation into Hale. I need personnel I can trust to secure the building and protect the patients. Pruitt's tone shifted instantly. How many affected? 1 so far, but they're threatening more. Are local authorities on site? They were. They left during a false alarm. I don't know if they're coming back. Stand by. The line went quiet. Olivia could hear muffled voices in the background, orders being given. Pruitt came back. I'm sending a team. ETA 15 minutes. In the meantime, you need to secure all controlled substances and isolate any patients who've received medications in the last 4 hours. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am. Good. And Kane? If this goes sideways, you get yourself out. You're no good to anyone dead. Understood. The line went dead. Olivia turned to Brenda. We're about to have company. I need you to find Phil, your supervisor, and tell him to gather every nurse still in the building. We're doing a full medication audit. What about the patients on the upper floors? If someone's tampering with drugs, that's why we're doing this fast. It took 8 minutes to round up the remaining night staff, 12 nurses, 3 residents, and 1 attending who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Olivia stood in the nurses' station, surrounded by exhausted, frightened faces, and laid it out plainly. Someone poisoned a patient tonight, deliberately. There may be others. We're going to check every IV bag, every syringe, every pill cup. Anything that looks tampered with, anything that doesn't match the chart exactly, you flag it and you don't administer it. Understood? Heads nodded. Someone in the back asked, who would do this? Someone who wants to stop the investigation into Hale, and they're willing to hurt patients to do it. A nurse Olivia recognized from the ICU stepped forward. What about Hale? Where is she? Last I saw, she was being escorted out by state investigators, but she's not the only one involved. Then who? Olivia didn't have an answer. Not yet. Her phone buzzed, a text from Mara. Stories live, brace yourself. Olivia pulled up the article on her phone. The headline was stark, unambiguous. Redwood Crest Medical Center, years of patient abuse, staff retaliation, and systemic cover-up exposed. Below it, a detailed breakdown. Names, dates, documents, everything. Within seconds, her phone started lighting up with notifications. Shares, comments, local news outlets picking up the story. It was spreading like wildfire. And somewhere in the hospital, someone was watching it happen. The military police arrived in 3 vehicles, 6 personnel in tactical gear, moving with the kind of efficiency that made civilian security look like mall cops. Their team leader, a staff sergeant named Ruiz, found Olivia in the medication room where she was inventorying controlled substances. Captain Kane? Olivia turned. That's me. Sergeant Ruiz, Colonel Pruitt sent us. What's the situation? Olivia briefed him quickly. The overdose, the threats, the communications jamming, the story going live. Ruiz listened without interrupting, his expression hardening with each detail. We'll secure all entry points and establish a perimeter, he said when she finished. No one in or out without clearance. We'll also post guards at the medication storage areas and patient wings. What about staff? Some of them might be involved. We'll vet everyone. Anyone who doesn't check out gets escorted off the premises. He paused. Ma'am, with respect, you should consider evacuating. You're the primary target. I'm not leaving these patients. Ruiz didn't argue. He just nodded. Then stay close to my team. If something happens, we'll get you out. He moved off to coordinate with his squad. Olivia went back to the inventory. So far, she'd found 3 IV bags with puncture marks that didn't match the administration records. Someone had been injecting something into the fluids. She'd flagged them for lab analysis, but the damage might already be done. Brenda appeared in the doorway, breathless. "We've got a problem." "What now?" "Patient in room 319 just coded. The team's working on him, but—" Olivia was already moving. Room 319 was controlled chaos. The code team had the patient on a backboard, chest compressions in progress, someone bagging him manually, while another nurse tried to get IV access. The monitor showed ventricular fibrillation, a fatal rhythm if they couldn't convert it. Olivia stepped in. What happened? The attending, Dr. Marcus Lyle, the same one who'd dismissed her weeks ago, looked up, sweat dripping down his face. Post-op patient, stable all night, suddenly arrested. "We're pushing epi, but he's not responding." Olivia checked the medication cart. Empty vials of epinephrine. But something was wrong. The labels looked off, slightly faded, the printing blurry. She grabbed one and held it up to the light. The serial number had been scratched off. "Stop compressions," she said. Lyle stared at her. "What?" "Stop. Now." The nurse doing compressions hesitated, looked at Lyle. "Do it," Olivia said, her voice cutting through the noise. The compression stopped. The room went silent except for the monitor's alarm. Olivia leaned over the patient, checked his pupils. "Pinpoint, just like Mr. Davison. He's not in V-fib from a cardiac event," she said. "He's been poisoned. Same as the patient in 214. The epinephrine in those vials isn't epinephrine." Lyle's face went white. "That's impossible. Look at the serial numbers. They've been tampered with." Lyle grabbed a vial, examined it, and swore. "What do we do?" one of the nurses asked. Olivia's mind raced. If the epinephrine was counterfeit, or worse, laced with something, they just pumped more poison into the patient's system. They needed to reverse it, but she didn't know what the contaminant was. "Get me activated charcoal and prepare for gastric lavage," she said. "And someone called toxicology. We need to identify what's in these vials." The team scrambled. Olivia worked on the patient, trying to stabilize him while her mind worked through the implications. Someone had replaced legitimate medication with fake or contaminated drugs. That took planning, access, time. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment retaliation. This had been in motion for a while. By the time the patient stabilized, barely, it was almost 3 in the morning. Olivia stepped out of the room, her scrubs damp with sweat, and found Sergeant Ruiz waiting. "We found something," he said. "What?" "Storage room in the basement. Looks like someone's been using it as a staging area. We found empty medication vials, syringes, and a laptop." Olivia followed him down 2 flights of stairs to a section of the hospital she'd never been in. Old, dimly lit, smelling of mildew and disuse. The storage room was small, cluttered with outdated equipment and boxes of supplies that probably should have been thrown out years ago. In the center, on a folding table, was a laptop, still open, still powered on. Olivia approached carefully. The screen showed a spreadsheet, rows and rows of data. Patient names, room numbers, medication schedules, and next to each entry, a notation. Completed or pending. There were 47 entries total. 23 were marked completed. Olivia's stomach turned. "They've already poisoned 23 patients." Ruiz leaned over her shoulder. "Can you tell which ones?" Olivia scrolled through the list. Some names she recognized, others she didn't. But they were all from different wings, different floors. "This isn't random," she said. "They're targeting specific patients." "Why?" Olivia clicked on one of the entries. A file opened, a patient chart, scanned and annotated. The patient was a journalist who'd been admitted for a minor surgical procedure 3 days ago. She clicked another. A lawyer. Another. A city council member. "They're not just attacking the hospital," Olivia said quietly. "They're eliminating witnesses. People who might have known about Hale's operation. People who could testify." Ruiz's jaw tightened. "We need to lock this place down. Now." "Already done," a voice said from the doorway. Olivia spun. A man stood there, mid-40s, expensive suit, calm expression. He wasn't hospital staff, wasn't law enforcement, and he definitely wasn't military. "Who the hell are you?" Ruiz's hand went to his sidearm. The man smiled. Someone who's been cleaning up other people's messes for a very long time. He looked at Olivia. Captain Kane, you've caused quite a bit of trouble. You're the one who sent the texts, Olivia said. Among other things, who do you work for? The man's smile widened. People who don't appreciate having their operations exposed. Hale was useful, efficient, ruthless, easily controlled, but she got sloppy. And now, thanks to you, we have a very public problem. So you're killing patients to cover it up? We're eliminating loose ends. There's a difference. Ruiz drew his weapon. Get on the ground, now. The man didn't move. Sergeant, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Right now, there are 23 patients upstairs who've been given a very specific compound, slow-acting, fatal if untreated. And the antidote? He pulled a small vial from his pocket. Only I know what it is. Olivia's blood ran cold. You're bluffing, she said. Am I? The man checked his watch. In about 90 minutes, the first wave of symptoms will start. Seizures, cardiac arrest, respiratory failure. It'll look like a mass medical emergency. Tragic, but explainable given the chaos of tonight. And by the time anyone figures out it was deliberate, I'll be long gone. Ruiz kept his weapon trained. You're not going anywhere. Actually, I am, because if you shoot me, you'll never know what the antidote is, and all 23 of those people will die. The man's expression didn't change. So here's what's going to happen. Captain Kane is going to come with me, quietly, and in exchange, I'll provide the antidote and walk away. Everyone lives. Everyone wins. Except me, Olivia said. Except you. But you're a soldier. You understand sacrifice. Olivia's mind raced. He was giving her a choice. Her life for 23 others. It wasn't really a choice at all. Don't do it, Ruiz said quietly. We'll find another way. There is no other way, the man said, and the clock is ticking. Olivia looked at Ruiz, then at the laptop, then back at the man. How do I know you'll keep your word? She asked. You don't, but it's the only chance they have. She took a breath, then she stepped forward. Ruiz grabbed her arm. Kane, let me go, she said softly. We can't just let me go. Ruiz released her, his face twisted with frustration and anger. Olivia walked toward the man. He pulled out a second vial, this one filled with clear liquid, and handed it to Ruiz. Mix this with saline. 5 milliliters per patient, IV push. It'll counteract the compound. How do I know this isn't poison too? Ruiz demanded. You don't. But if you want them to live, you don't have much choice. The man gestured to Olivia. Shall we? They walked out of the storage room together. The man led her through a service corridor Olivia hadn't known existed, away from the main hospital, toward a loading dock at the rear of the building. A black SUV was waiting, engine running. Get in, the man said. Olivia climbed into the back seat. The man got in beside her. The driver, another anonymous figure in a dark suit, pulled away from the hospital without a word. They drove in silence for several minutes. Finally, Olivia spoke. Who are you really? Does it matter? It does to me. The man sighed. I represent certain interests, medical suppliers, pharmaceutical distributors, people who benefit when hospitals run smoothly and quietly. Hale was useful because she kept things under control. But she got greedy, started skimming, started making mistakes. And you? He looked at her. You're the mistake that exposed all the others. So you're going to kill me. Not personally, but yes. Olivia's hand slipped into her pocket, fingers brushing her phone. Still there. Still on. She'd activated the voice recorder before leaving the storage room. Every word he'd said was being captured. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere your body won't be found for a while. The SUV turned onto a highway on-ramp, accelerating into the pre-dawn darkness. Olivia calculated her options. She could try to fight, but the driver was armed, and so was the man beside her. She could try to jump out, but at this speed she'd probably break her neck. Or she could wait. Wait for the right moment. Trust that Ruiz would figure it out. Trust that Mara's story would burn bright enough to expose everything. Trust that the 23 patients would survive. The SUV exited the highway 20 minutes later, turning onto a dirt road that wound into the foothills outside Denver. No streetlights, no buildings, just darkness and scrub brush. This was it. The end of the line. The SUV stopped. The man pulled out a gun, small, compact, equipped with a suppressor. "Get out," he said. Olivia opened the door and stepped into the cold night air. The driver stayed in the vehicle, engine still running. The man followed her out, keeping the gun trained on her. "Walk," he said, gesturing toward the darkness. Olivia walked. 20 feet, 30, 50. She could hear the man's footsteps behind her, steady, unhurried. "Stop," he said. She stopped. "Turn around." She turned. The man raised the gun, his finger moving to the trigger. And then, from somewhere in the darkness, a voice cut through the silence. "Drop the weapon!" The man froze. Olivia's heart hammered. Flashlights snapped on, 3 of them, positioned in a triangle around them. Behind the lights, figures in tactical gear. Military police. Ruiz stepped forward, his rifle aimed at the man's chest. "I said drop it." The man's jaw tightened. Then slowly, he lowered the gun. "How?" he started. "GPS tracker in her phone," Ruiz said. "We've been following you since you left the hospital." Olivia let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. The man smiled, a cold, humorless expression. "It doesn't matter. You can arrest me, but the people I work for, you'll never touch them. They're too connected, too protected. This ends nothing." "Maybe," Ruiz said, "but it ends you." 2 MPs moved forward and secured the man in handcuffs. Olivia walked back toward the vehicles, her legs shaking. Ruiz fell into step beside her. "You okay?" "Yeah, I think so." "That was a hell of a risk. It was the only play." "Still," he glanced at her. "For what it's worth, Colonel Pruitt is going to have a lot to say about you putting yourself in danger like that." Olivia almost smiled. "I'll bet." They reached the convoy, 3 military vehicles, lights flashing. The man was being loaded into one of them, his expression blank now, resigned. Ruiz's radio crackled. A voice came through. "Sergeant, this is base. We've got the analysis on that antidote. It checks out. All 23 patients are responding. No fatalities." Olivia closed her eyes. Relief washed over her like a wave. They'd done it. They'd actually done it. By the time they got back to Redwood Crest, the sun was rising. The hospital was swarming with federal agents, state investigators, and more military personnel. The patients who'd been poisoned were stable, under close observation. The contaminated medications had been secured, and somewhere in the chaos, Veronica Hale was being processed into federal custody. Olivia stood in the parking lot, watching it all unfold, her body aching, her mind numb. Mara appeared beside her, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Olivia. "You look like hell," Mara said. "Feel like it too." "The story's everywhere. Front page of every major outlet. FBI's opened a formal investigation. DOJ is looking into pharmaceutical fraud." "You did it, Kane." Olivia sipped the coffee. It was terrible. She drank it anyway. "We did it." Mara smiled. "Yeah, we did." They stood there in silence for a moment. Then Mara's phone buzzed. She checked it, and her expression shifted. "What?" Olivia asked. Mara handed her the phone. It was a news alert. Breaking story. The headline, "Federal Judge Issues Warrant for Hospital Board Members in Connection with Redwood Crest Scandal." Below it, a list of names. People Olivia didn't recognize. But at the bottom of the list, one name stood out. Senator William Thorne. Olivia's breath caught. A sitting U.S. senator, implicated in the scandal. "Jesus," she whispered. Mara's voice was quiet. "Kane, what did you just kick over?" Olivia stared at the screen, her mind reeling, and then her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered it. A voice, digitized, distorted, spoke. "Captain Kane, you've been very busy." Olivia's blood ran cold. "Who is this?" "Someone who's been watching you, and someone who's very disappointed. You thought Hale was the problem? You thought her arrest would end this? What do you want?" "I want you to understand something. The people you've exposed, they're just the surface. There are layers you haven't even begun to uncover. And now that you've made yourself a threat?" The voice paused. "Well, Let's just say you've painted a very large target on your back. The line went dead. Olivia lowered the phone, her hand trembling. Mara was staring at her. What was that? Olivia looked at the hospital, at the federal agents, at the investigators, at the wreckage of everything she'd just torn down. And she realized with absolute clarity that she hadn't ended anything. She'd just started a war. Olivia stood in the parking lot, phone still pressed to her ear even though the line had gone dead. The distorted voice echoed in her head, layers you haven't even begun to uncover, and she felt the weight of it settle into her bones. Mara was saying something, but the words didn't register. Olivia's eyes tracked across the hospital entrance where federal agents moved in and out like ants on a disturbed hill. She'd thought exposing Hale would be enough. Thought the investigation would clean house, and that would be the end of it. She'd been wrong. Kane! Mara's hand on her shoulder pulled her back. What did they say? Olivia lowered the phone. They said this is bigger than Hale. How much bigger? I don't know yet. Mara's expression hardened. Then we find out. Before Olivia could respond, Sergeant Ruiz approached, his face tight with urgency. Captain, we've got a situation. The man we arrested, he's asking to speak with you. Only you. Why? Says he has information. Says he'll only talk if you're in the room. Olivia glanced at Mara, who nodded. Could be a trap. Could be leverage. Either way, you need to hear it. Where is he? Temporary holding area we set up in the hospital's security office. Federal agents are running the interrogation, but they agreed to let you sit in. Olivia followed Ruiz back inside. Watch. The security office had been converted into a makeshift interrogation room. The man who'd tried to kill her sat at a metal table, hands cuffed in front of him, his expensive suit rumpled now, his calm facade cracked around the edges. 2 FBI agents flanked him. A third stood near the door. Olivia entered and took the seat across from him. She didn't say anything, just waited. The man smiled, that same cold, empty expression from before. Captain Kane, still alive. I'm almost impressed. You wanted to talk, so talk. I want a deal first. One of the agents, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and no patience, leaned forward. You're not in a position to negotiate. I think I am. The man's gaze never left Olivia. Because what I know, it goes all the way to the top. And if you want names, locations, financial records, everything that ties this network together, you'll need to guarantee my safety. Safety from who? Olivia asked. From the people who'll kill me the second they realize I'm talking. The lead agent exchanged a glance with her partner. Then she pulled out a tablet and slid it across the table. We can offer witness protection if your information leads to actionable arrests, but we need something up front, proof you're not wasting our time. The man looked at the tablet, then back at Olivia. Veronica Hale was a district manager, one of 12 across the country. She controlled hospital operations in Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. Her job was to streamline costs, maximize profits, and eliminate inefficiencies. Inefficiencies, Olivia repeated, her voice flat. You mean people? Patients who stayed too long, staff who asked too many questions, whistleblowers. He paused. She was good at it, ruthless, but she got greedy, started skimming funds, altering supply contracts for personal kickbacks. That made her a liability. Who does she report to? The agent asked. A man named Gerald Voss. He runs the entire network, 12 hospitals, 8 pharmaceutical distributorships, a lobbying firm in D.C. And above him? The man smiled. That's where it gets interesting. Senator Thorne, Olivia said. The man's smile widened. Among others, Thorne's the public face. He pushes through legislation, secures federal contracts, makes sure oversight stays toothless. But there are 6 other senators involved, a dozen congressmen, and at least 3 cabinet officials who've taken money from the network over the last decade. The room went silent. The lead agent leaned back, her expression unreadable. You're saying this is a federal conspiracy? I'm saying this is an industry, and you just kicked over the smallest piece of it. Olivia's stomach turned. How many hospitals? 12 confirmed. Probably more. They operate under different names, different management structures, but they all feed into the same system. Cut costs, inflate billing, silence opposition. Hale wasn't an outlier. She was the model. One of the other agents stepped forward. If you're telling the truth, we'll need documentation. Financial records, communications, names. I have all of it, encrypted files stored in 3 separate locations. You guarantee my protection, I'll give you the keys. The lead agent stood. We'll discuss terms. Don't go anywhere. She gestured to Olivia. A word. Outside. Olivia followed her into the hallway. The agent closed the door and turned to face her. How much of that do you believe? All of it, Olivia said. It fits. Hale's behavior, the hospital's financials, the retaliation patterns. It all makes sense if she was part of something bigger. If he's telling the truth, this becomes a multi-state federal investigation. We're talking RICO charges, conspiracy, possibly treason, if we can prove the senators knowingly endangered public health for profit. So what's the problem? The agent's expression darkened. The problem is jurisdiction, the resources, the politics. If we move on this, we're going up against some of the most powerful people in the country, people who can make evidence disappear, people who can bury us. Then we move fast, Olivia said, before they have time to react. That's not how this works. Then make it work. The agent studied her. You're military. You're used to clear chains of command, defined missions. This isn't that. This is bureaucracy and lawyers and politicians protecting their own. It could take months, years. People are dying now. I know. The agent's voice softened slightly. But if we rush this, if we make one mistake, the whole case falls apart and everyone walks. Is that what you want? Olivia didn't answer because the agent was right, and that made it worse. Her phone buzzed, a text from Mara. Turn on the news. Olivia pulled out her phone and opened a news app. The top headline stopped her cold. Senator Thorne denies involvement in hospital scandal, calls allegations baseless and politically motivated. Below it, a video. Thorne standing at a podium, flanked by lawyers, his expression one of controlled outrage. Olivia clicked play. Thorne's voice was smooth, practiced. These accusations are nothing more than a coordinated smear campaign designed to damage my reputation and distract from the real issues facing our healthcare system. I have never had any financial relationship with Redwood Crest Medical Center or its administrators. I have never accepted bribes, and I will vigorously defend myself against these slanderous claims. A reporter shouted a question. Senator, your name appears in financial documents linked to the hospital's parent company. Documents that are unverified and likely fabricated, Thorne cut in. I've already instructed my legal team to pursue defamation charges against the outlets spreading these lies. The video ended. Olivia looked at the agent. He's already getting ahead of it. Of course he is. That's what they do. The agent's jaw tightened. But if your guy in there delivers what he promised, Thorne won't be able to talk his way out. It took another 3 hours to hammer out the terms of the deal. The man, whose real name turned out to be Marcus Trenton, former executive consultant for a firm called MedPath Solutions, provided the first batch of files in exchange for a formal witness protection agreement. The files were damning. Emails between Hale and Gerald Voss detailing cost-cutting measures that included withholding necessary treatments, discharging patients prematurely, and covering up medical errors. Financial records showing payments from shell companies to Thorne's campaign fund and personal accounts. Communication logs proving coordination between hospital administrators and pharmaceutical reps to inflate drug prices and split the profits. And buried in the middle of it all, a list. 12 hospitals, 47 administrators, hundreds of staff members complicit or coerced. And at the center, a single name, Apex Health Collaborative. Mara, who'd been granted limited access to the files, whistled low. This is Pulitzer level. If we publish this, we don't publish yet, the lead agent, who'd introduced herself as Special Agent Carolyn Reeves, interrupted. Not until we've secured the evidence and made arrests. If this leaks prematurely, they'll destroy everything and scatter. Then how long? Mara asked. 72 hours, maybe less. That's a long time for people with this much power to realize what's coming. It's the best we can do. Olivia stepped outside for air. The sun was fully up now, the sky clear and bright. Hospital staff were trickling in for the day shift, most of them unaware of what had happened overnight. She watched them for a moment, nurses grabbing coffee, doctors checking their phones, people just trying to get through another day. How many of them knew? How many had looked the other way because it was easier? Her phone rang. Colonel Pruitt. Captain Kane. I've been briefed on the situation. You all right? Physically? Yes, ma'am. And otherwise? Olivia hesitated. I think I just opened a door I can't close. Good. That's what happens when you do the right thing. Pruitt's tone shifted. I'm putting you on medical leave, effective immediately. Ma'am, I don't need... It's not a request. You've been exposed to chemical agents, you've had multiple death threats, and you're now a material witness in a federal investigation. You need rest, and you need protection. I can't just disappear while... You're not disappearing. You're regrouping, and in the meantime, I'm assigning a security detail. 2 personnel, rotating shifts, non-negotiable. Olivia closed her eyes. Understood. One more thing. The commendation I mentioned, it's being upgraded. You're being put in for the Airman's Medal. Ma'am, I don't... You saved 11 lives in a contaminated zone and stopped a mass poisoning event. You've earned it. Pruitt paused. Get some rest, Captain. That's an order. The line went dead. Olivia spent the next 18 hours in a borrowed apartment under military guard, watching the news cycle explode. The story had gone national. Every outlet was covering it: cable news, network broadcasts, online platforms. Pundits argued. Politicians released statements. Thorne held another press conference, this time flanked by even more lawyers. But the pressure was building. 3 more senators named in Trenton's files issued denials. 2 resigned abruptly, citing personal reasons. A pharmaceutical CEO was placed on administrative leave. The hospital's board dissolved itself overnight. And then, on hour 19, the first arrest happened. Gerald Voss, CEO of Apex Health Collaborative, was taken into custody at his estate in Virginia. The footage showed him being led out in handcuffs, his face blank, as federal agents carried boxes of documents from his home. Mara texted, "It's happening." Olivia watched the news coverage, feeling something she hadn't felt in days. Hope. Not much, but enough. Hot. On the morning of the 3rd day, Olivia was summoned back to Redwood Crest. The hospital was almost unrecognizable. Federal agents had set up a command center in the administrative wing, and every department was being audited. Staff were being interviewed one by one. Patients who'd been affected by the poisonings were being monitored around the clock. Brenda found her in the hallway. She looked better, steadier, but the shadows under her eyes told the real story. You okay? Olivia asked. I don't know yet. Brenda managed a weak smile. But I'm still here. That's something. It is. I heard they arrested Voss, and 2 senators resigned. 3 now. Just got word an hour ago. Brenda shook her head. I can't believe it. All this time, and I knew Hale was awful, but I didn't think... None of us did. That's how they got away with it. Brenda looked at her. What happens now to the hospital, I don't know. New management, probably. Federal oversight. Maybe they shut it down entirely and rebuild from scratch. And us? The staff? Olivia didn't have an answer for that. Agent Reeves appeared at the end of the hall and waved Olivia over. We need you. Conference room. Now. The conference room was packed. FBI agents, DOJ prosecutors, military personnel, and a handful of people Olivia didn't recognize. At the head of the table sat a man in his 60s, gray hair, sharp suit, the kind of presence that commanded attention without effort. Reeves made introductions. This is Deputy Attorney General Vincent Harlow. He's overseeing the task force. Harlow stood and extended a hand. Olivia shook it. Captain Kane, I've heard a lot about you. Sir? Please sit. He gestured to a chair. Once everyone was seated, he got straight to it. Thanks to your actions and Mr. Trenton's cooperation, we've built a case that spans 12 states and implicates over 60 individuals, including sitting members of Congress. The scope is unprecedented. What's the timeline? Olivia asked. We're coordinating simultaneous arrests across multiple jurisdictions. 48 hours from now, we'll execute warrants on everyone from hospital administrators to pharmaceutical executives to the senators themselves. And Thorne? Harlow's expression hardened. Senator Thorne will be arrested at his home in D.C. He's being charged with racketeering, conspiracy to commit fraud, and obstruction of justice. If convicted, he's looking at 20 years minimum. A murmur went through the room. But there's a complication, Harlow continued. Thorne has powerful allies, people who'll do whatever it takes to protect him, which means the next 48 hours are going to be critical. We need to move fast and we need to move clean. No leaks, no mistakes. He turned to Olivia. And we need you to testify. Olivia blinked. Testify? You're the one who started this. You documented the abuses, saved the patients, exposed the conspiracy. Your testimony will be the foundation of the case. Without it, defense attorneys will argue this is all circumstantial. When? Grand jury convenes in 6 days. After that, we'll move to trial. Harlow paused. I won't lie to you, Captain. This is going to be hard. They'll come after your credibility, your service record, your motives. They'll try to paint you as a disgruntled employee with an agenda. Let them try, Olivia said. Harlow smiled. Good. Then we're on the same page. Go. The next 2 days were a blur. Olivia was prepped by prosecutors, walked through her testimony a dozen times, and subjected to mock cross-examinations designed to prepare her for the worst the defense could throw at her. She spent her evenings in the borrowed apartment, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything that had happened, the patients she'd saved, the ones she hadn't, the choices she'd made and the consequences that followed. On the night before the arrests, Mara stopped by with takeout and beer. Thought you could use some company, she said. They ate in silence for a while. Then Mara spoke. You know this is going to change everything, right? Not just for you, for everyone involved. I know. Hospitals will be scrutinized, regulations will tighten, people will lose their jobs, some who deserved it, some who didn't. I know, Olivia said again. And you're okay with that? Olivia set down her beer. I'm okay with the truth. Whatever comes after, we'll deal with it. Mara nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. You're the one who published the story. Yeah, but you're the one who lived it. Mara paused. You could have walked away, kept your head down. No one would have blamed you. I would have, Mara smiled. Yeah, I know. The arrests happened at 6 a.m. on a Thursday. Olivia watched the news coverage from the apartment. Split screens showed federal agents executing warrants in a dozen cities simultaneously. Hospital administrators let out in handcuffs, pharmaceutical executives taken from their homes. And in Washington, D.C., Senator William Thorne being escorted from his residence by FBI agents while reporters shouted questions. His expression was stone. No outrage now, no denials. Just the cold, hard realization that the armor he'd built around himself had finally cracked. By noon, the arrests dominated every news cycle. By evening, the first resignations came. Members of Congress stepping down before they could be charged. Hospital boards dissolving. Corporate executives fleeing. The system Hale and Voss and Thorne had built was collapsing in real time. And Olivia watched it all from a borrowed apartment, feeling numb and exhausted and something close to vindicated. Her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Captain Kane? The voice was unfamiliar. Male, older. Who is this? My name is David Rains. I was a patient at Redwood Crest 3 years ago. I nearly died because of a medication error that was covered up. I tried to report it, but he trailed off. Anyway, I saw the news. I wanted to thank you for doing what I couldn't. Olivia's throat tightened. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. Because of you, people like me, people who were hurt and ignored, were finally being heard. That matters. The line went quiet for a moment. Then he continued. I don't know if you'll ever see this through to the end. I don't know if justice will actually happen. But you started something. And that's more than anyone else did. Thank you, Olivia said quietly. No, thank you. He hung up. Olivia sat there, phone in hand, tears burning at the corners of her eyes. She'd spent so long focused on exposing the corruption, on stopping the harm, that she'd almost forgotten why she started. Because someone she cared about had called her, broken and desperate, and she'd refused to let that stand. And now, maybe, that was finally going to mean something. 6 days later, Olivia stood in a federal courthouse, right hand raised, and swore to tell the truth. The grand jury listened as she walked them through everything: the buried complaints, the retaliation, Laura Finch's death, the poisonings, Trenton's confession. She showed them documents, recordings, photos. She answered every question without hesitation. When she finished, the room was silent. The lead prosecutor, a stern woman named Angela Voss, stood. "Thank you, Captain Kane. Your testimony has been invaluable." Olivia nodded and stepped down. As she left the courthouse, reporters swarmed. She ignored them, kept walking until a voice cut through the noise. "Captain Kane!" She turned. A woman in her 30s stood there, holding a photo. "This is my mother, Laura Finch. You tried to save her." Olivia's breath caught. "I just wanted you to know," the woman continued, tears streaming down her face, "that it mattered, that you mattered. And because of you, the people who killed her are finally going to pay." Olivia couldn't speak. She just nodded. The woman stepped forward and hugged her. And for a moment, surrounded by strangers and cameras and chaos, Olivia let herself feel it. The weightlifting, the justice taking shape, the vindication. 3 weeks later, the trials began. Thorne was the first to face a jury. The evidence was overwhelming: financial records, emails, testimony from Trenton and a dozen others who'd flipped once they realized the ship was sinking. His lawyers tried every trick in the book, but nothing stuck. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. When the verdict was read, Olivia was sitting in the gallery. She watched Thorne's face crumble, watched the marshals lead him away in handcuffs, and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not perfect, not complete, but enough. A month after the trial, Olivia returned to Redwood Crest. The hospital had been restructured under federal oversight, with new leadership and strict protocols. Most of the old staff had been cleared after investigations, though a few had been quietly let go. Brenda was still there. So was Phil. So were most of the nurses who'd risked everything to help expose the truth. Colonel Pruitt had offered Olivia a position as Director of Clinical Integrity, rebuilding the system, implementing safeguards, making sure nothing like this ever happened again. Olivia had accepted. On her first day back, she walked through the halls she'd once patrolled in secret, documenting abuses and waiting for the right moment to strike. Now, those halls were different, cleaner, safer, better. She stopped in front of room 214, where Mr. Davison had nearly died. The room was empty now, freshly cleaned, waiting for the next patient. Olivia stood there for a long moment. Then she moved on. That evening, Olivia's phone rang. A number she recognized. She answered. "Hey!" The voice on the other end was warm, familiar. The friend who'd called her 6 months ago, broken and desperate. "Liv, I saw the news. I can't believe you actually did it." "We did it," Olivia said. "You started this when you called me. I gave up. You didn't. You survived. That's what mattered." There was a pause, then, "I got a call from the new HR director at Redwood Crest. They're hiring. They wanted to know if I'd be interested in coming back." Olivia's heart lifted. "Are you?" Another pause, longer this time. "Yeah," her friend said. "I think I am." Olivia smiled. "Good. We'll need you." "I'll see you soon, Liv." "See you soon." The line went dead. Olivia stood on her apartment balcony, looking out over the city as the sun set, and let herself feel it. The quiet victory, the hard-won justice, the knowledge that she'd done what she set out to do. But as the last light faded and the stars began to appear, her phone buzzed one final time. A text from an unknown number. No words. Just a photo. Olivia opened it. Her blood turned to ice. It was a picture of her taken from across the street. Recent, maybe an hour ago, and written across the bottom in red. "You won the battle. Now let's see if you survived the war." Olivia stared at the photo on her phone, her apartment balcony suddenly feeling too exposed, too vulnerable. The image was clear, taken with a telephoto lens, probably from a rooftop or high window across the street. She was visible through her own window, standing exactly where she stood now. Someone had been watching, was still watching. She stepped back inside, locked the balcony door, and pulled the curtains shut. Her hand went to her phone, ready to call Ruiz or Reeves, but she stopped. Whoever sent this wanted her afraid, wanted her to react, wanted her looking over her shoulder instead of forward. She deleted the photo and blocked the number. Then she called Colonel Pruitt. Pruitt answered on the first ring. "Kane, it's late. I just received a threat. Photo surveillance, unknown sender." "You report it?" "Calling you first." Pruitt was quiet for 2 seconds. "I'm escalating your security detail. Full tactical team, 24-hour coverage. And I want you relocated to base housing until we identify the source." "Ma'am, I can't just—" "You can, and you will. These people already tried to kill you once. I'm not giving them a second chance." Pruitt's voice softened slightly. "You've done enough, Captain. Let us handle the cleanup." "What if this is the cleanup?" "Then we'll handle that too. Pack a bag. Team will be there in 30 minutes. The line went dead. Olivia stood in her living room, surrounded by boxes she hadn't unpacked and furniture that didn't feel like hers. She'd been living like a transient for months, ready to move, ready to run, never settling. Maybe Pruitt was right. Maybe it was time to let someone else carry the weight for a while. She packed a duffel bag with essentials and was zipping it closed when her phone rang again. "Mara." "Tell me you saw the news," Mara said without preamble. "I've been busy. What happened?" "2 more arrests, board members from hospitals in Nevada and Utah. Same network, same pattern. The feds are tearing through the whole operation." Mara paused. "Kane, this thing is bigger than we thought. They're finding connections to medical fraud schemes in 8 other states. You didn't just expose one conspiracy, you cracked open an entire industry." Olivia sat on the edge of her bed. "How many people?" "Victims? Thousands, probably. Staff who were silenced or fired? Hundreds. But that's not why I called." Mara's voice dropped. "Someone leaked your personal information to a right-wing blog. Home address, service record, employment history. They're painting you as a disgraced military officer with a vendetta." "I'm not disgraced. I know that. But they're spinning it. Saying you were forced out of active duty for insubordination. Saying you fabricated evidence because you couldn't handle being fired from Redwood Crest." Olivia's jaw tightened. "None of that is true." "Doesn't matter. It's out there. And people are running with it." "Who leaked it?" "I'm trying to find out. But Kane, you need to get ahead of this. Make a statement. Set the record straight." "I'm not doing press." "Then let the lies stand?" Olivia closed her eyes. She'd known this would happen. Known that exposing powerful people meant becoming a target herself. But knowing it and living it were different things. "I'll think about it," she said. "Don't think too long. This stuff spreads fast." Mara hung up. 20 minutes later, headlights swept across Olivia's window. She looked out to see 2 black SUVs parked on the street, military police stepping out in full tactical gear. Ruiz was with them. She grabbed her bag and met them downstairs. The drive to Peterson took 40 minutes. Olivia sat in the back of the lead vehicle, silent, watching Denver's lights fade in the rearview mirror. Ruiz sat beside her, not speaking, just present. Finally, he broke the silence. "Colonel Pruitt briefed me on the leak. We're investigating." "Any leads?" "Not yet, but whoever it is, they have access to classified personnel files. That narrows it down." "How narrow?" "Department of Defense databases. Maybe a few hundred people with the right clearance." He paused. "Could be someone inside. Could be someone they bought." Olivia looked out the window. "So we're back to not knowing who to trust." "We trust each other. Everyone else gets vetted." They arrived at Peterson just before midnight. Olivia was escorted to temporary quarters in the officer housing complex, a small but secure apartment with reinforced windows and a guard posted outside. Ruiz did a sweep of the interior before letting her in. "Try to get some sleep," he said. "We'll have answers by morning." "You keep saying that, and I keep delivering." He almost smiled. "You're safe here, Captain. I promise." He left. The door locked behind him with a heavy click. Olivia dropped her bag on the bed and sat in the darkness for a long time, listening to the silence. She woke to pounding on the door at 6:47 a.m. Olivia was on her feet before her eyes fully opened, military instinct overriding exhaustion. She checked the peephole. Ruiz stood outside, his expression grim. She opened the door. "What happened?" "We found the leak. You're going to want to see this." She followed him to a secure briefing room 2 buildings over. Inside, Agent Reeves and Colonel Pruitt were waiting, along with two DoD investigators Olivia didn't recognize. Pruitt gestured to his chair. "Sit." Olivia sat. One of the investigators, a lean woman in her 50s with steel gray hair, opened a laptop and turned it toward Olivia. On the screen was a personnel file. Her personnel file, but the metadata showed it had been accessed remotely 3 days ago. This was pulled from a DoD server by someone using credentials belonging to a captain named Eric Stillwater. He's assigned to Northcom Logistics. Olivia frowned. "I don't know anyone named Stillwater." "He doesn't know you either. His credentials were stolen 2 weeks ago in a phishing scam. Whoever used them covered their tracks well, but we traced the access point to an IP address registered to a private intelligence firm called Sentinel Group." Reeves leaned forward. "Sentinel Group provides security consulting and opposition research for high-profile clients. Guess who's been on their payroll for the last 3 years?" "Thorne," Olivia said. "Close. Thorne's chief of staff, a man named Randall Kemp. He's been coordinating damage control since the arrest started. Smear campaigns, legal intimidation, information suppression. He's also the one who hired the man who tried to kill you." Olivia's pulse quickened. "Where is he?" "We don't know. He disappeared 48 hours ago. No credit card activity, no phone pings, nothing. But we did find this." Reeves pulled up another file, a series of emails between Kemp and an unknown recipient. The subject line read, "Contingency? Final option." Olivia read the first email. Her blood ran cold. "If Kane testifies, she becomes a permanent liability. Recommend immediate extraction and neutralization before trial proceedings conclude. Willing to authorize up to $500,000 for clean resolution." The reply was even worse. "Understood. Target acquired. Window closes in 72 hours." The timestamp was from yesterday. Pruitt's voice was hard. "Kemp put a contract on you. Professional hitter, probably already in Denver. We're locking down the base and coordinating with local FBI to find him." Olivia looked at the email again. "He's not coming here." "What?" "If he's a professional, he knows I'm on a military base surrounded by armed personnel. He's not stupid enough to try an assault here." She met Pruitt's eyes. "He's going to wait until I leave, and he's counting on me leaving." "Then you don't leave," Ruiz said. "That's not sustainable. I can't hide on base forever." Reeves crossed her arms. "So what do you suggest?" Olivia thought for a moment. Then, "We give him what he wants. Or make him think we are." The plan took shape over the next 2 hours. Olivia would make a public appearance, a press conference scheduled for the following morning at a downtown hotel. The announcement would go out through official channels, making it look like she was finally responding to the smear campaign. Security would be visible but not overwhelming, just enough to make it seem real. The hitter would see his window, and when he moved, they'd be waiting. "You're using yourself as bait," Mara said when Olivia called to brief her. "That's insane. It's tactical. It's suicidal. It's the only way to draw him out. And once we have him, we have Kemp. And once we have Kemp, we dismantle the last piece of Thorne's network." Mara was silent for a long time. Then, "If you die doing this, I'm writing the most scathing obituary in journalistic history. I'll try not to give you the opportunity." "You better not." The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. at the Ridgeway Hotel, a mid-tier venue downtown with good sightlines and multiple exits. Easy for a sniper to surveil, easier for federal agents to control. By 9:30, Olivia was in position in a secure room on the 3rd floor, watching the lobby through live feeds. Plainclothes FBI agents were scattered throughout the building. Snipers were on neighboring rooftops, and Ruiz's team had locked down every entrance. Reeves stood beside her, watching the same feeds. "If he's coming, it'll be in the next 15 minutes. "He's coming," Olivia said. At 9:42, one of the agents radioed in. "We've got movement. East stairwell. Single male, mid-30s, carrying a briefcase." Another agent. "I've got him on visual. He's heading toward the 2nd floor conference wing." Reeves keyed her radio. "All units stand by. Do not engage until we have confirmation." Olivia watched the feed as the man moved through the hallway. He walked with purpose, calm, professional. When he reached a supply closet near the conference room where Olivia was supposed to appear, he stopped and checked his watch. Then he opened the briefcase. Inside was a disassembled sniper rifle. That's him, Reeves said. Move in. Now. The agents converged from 3 directions. The man saw them coming and bolted, leaving the briefcase behind. He made it 10 feet before Ruiz tackled him to the ground, hard enough to knock the wind out of him. The man didn't resist, just lay there, breathing heavily, his face pressed against the carpet. Ruiz cuffed him and hauled him to his feet. You're under arrest for attempted murder and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. I want a lawyer, the man said. Yeah, thought you might. His name was Aaron Vickers, former Army Ranger dishonorably discharged for assault, now working as a freelance contractor for anyone willing to pay. Within 3 hours of his arrest, he'd given up Kemp's location in exchange for a reduced sentence. Kemp was holed up in a rented cabin outside Boulder, waiting for confirmation that the job was done. He didn't get it. Instead, at 2:17 p.m., FBI agents breached the cabin and found him sitting at a kitchen table with a glass of whiskey and a laptop open to news coverage of Olivia's supposed press conference. He didn't resist, didn't run, just closed the laptop and put his hands up. Smart move, Reeves said as they let him out. Makes the trial easier. Kemp didn't respond. But as he passed Olivia, who was standing outside the cabin with Ruiz, he stopped and looked at her. You think this changes anything? He said quietly. You think taking down Thorne and me and a few others actually fixes the system? Olivia held his gaze. No, but it's a start. Kemp smiled bitterly. You're going to spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Maybe, but you're going to spend the rest of yours in a cell. He was led away. The trial of Randall Kemp lasted 8 days. The evidence was overwhelming. The emails, Vickers' testimony, financial records showing payments to Sentinel Group. Kemp's lawyers tried to argue he was just following orders, but the jury didn't buy it. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. 30 years, no parole. Olivia watched from the gallery as Kemp was led away in shackles. He didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, Mara was waiting with a camera crew. Captain Kane, any comment on the verdict? Olivia stopped. She'd avoided press for weeks, but something about this moment felt different. Final. She looked directly at the camera. Justice doesn't happen by accident. It happens when people refuse to stay silent, when they refuse to accept that corruption is just the way things are, when they stand up, even when it's hard, even when it's dangerous, and say, enough. She paused. This isn't over. There's still work to do. But today we proved that no one, no matter how powerful, is untouchable. The reporters erupted with questions, but Olivia walked away. 3 months later, Redwood Crest Medical Center officially reopened under new management. The federal oversight had ended. The staff had been retrained, and Olivia Kane stood in the main lobby as the newly appointed Director of Clinical Integrity and Patient Advocacy. It was her first official day in the role, and the hospital felt different. Brighter, safer. Brenda found her near the nurses' station, carrying a stack of files. You ready for this? Olivia smiled. As ready as I'll ever be. Good, because we've got about 30 staff members waiting for orientation, and they're all terrified of you. Why? Because you're the woman who took down a senator. Brenda grinned. That's a hell of a reputation. Olivia shook her head. I didn't do it alone. No, but you started it. They walked together toward the conference room where the new hires were waiting. Olivia could see them through the glass. Young nurses, eager residents, people who'd chosen this profession because they wanted to help, not because they wanted power. She opened the door. 30 faces turned toward her, a mix of nerves and curiosity. Olivia stood at the front of the room and took a breath. I'm not going to lie to you, she said. This job is hard. You're going to see things that break your heart. You're going to deal with patients who are angry, families who are grieving, systems that don't always work the way they should. And there will be days when you wonder why you chose this. She paused, looking around the room. But you'll also save lives. You'll be the person someone remembers when they think about the worst day of their life. Because you were there, you listened, you cared, and that matters more than you know. The room was silent. This hospital has a history, a painful one, but we're here to make sure it has a better future. That starts with you, with all of us holding ourselves to a higher standard, with refusing to look the other way when something's wrong, with remembering that every person who walks through those doors deserves dignity, respect, and the best care we can give. She let that sink in. So if you're ready to do that, if you're ready to be part of something that actually means something, then welcome. I'm glad you're here. One of the nurses in the back raised her hand tentatively. What if we see something we're not sure about? What if we're afraid to speak up? Olivia met her eyes. Then you come to me, or you go to HR, or you file a report, but you don't stay silent, not here, not anymore. The nurse nodded slowly. Olivia spent the next 2 hours walking them through protocols, safety standards, and the new reporting systems that had been put in place. By the end, the nervousness had faded, replaced by something that looked like hope. When the orientation ended, Brenda pulled her aside. That was good, she said. Really good. Thanks. You know, when you first got here, I thought you were just another hire who wouldn't last. I'm glad I was wrong. Olivia smiled. So am I. What? That evening, Olivia returned to her apartment. A real one now, not borrowed, not temporary. She'd unpacked the boxes, hung pictures on the walls, bought furniture that felt like hers. It was small, but it was home. She poured a glass of wine and stood by the window looking out over the city as the sun set. Her phone buzzed. A text from her friend, the one who'd called her 6 months ago, broken and desperate. First day back tomorrow. Nervous but ready. Thank you for giving me this. Olivia typed back, You gave it to yourself. I just helped clear the path. The response came quickly. Still, thank you. Olivia set the phone down and took a sip of wine. Another text came through, this one from Colonel Pruitt. Airman's medal ceremony is scheduled for next month. You're required to attend. No arguments. Olivia smiled and replied, Understood, ma'am. She looked out the window again, watching the lights come on across Denver. Somewhere in that city were people she'd helped, patients who'd survived, staff who'd found their voices, families who'd gotten answers. She didn't know all their names, didn't know all their stories, but she knew they were out there, and that was enough. 6 weeks later, Olivia stood in full-dress uniform at Peterson Space Force Base, surrounded by military personnel and hospital staff, as Colonel Pruitt pinned the airman's medal to her chest. The citation read, For heroism involving voluntary risk of life under conditions other than combat. Captain Olivia Kane distinguished herself by extraordinary heroism in connection with the prevention of mass casualties during a chemical contamination event and subsequent exposure of systemic corruption resulting in the protection of countless lives. Pruitt stepped back and saluted. Olivia returned it, crisp and precise. The crowd applauded. Afterward, there was a small reception. Mara was there, along with Brenda, Phil, Sergeant Ruiz, Agent Reeves, and a dozen others who'd played a part in bringing the conspiracy down. Mara raised a glass to Captain Kane, the woman who proved that one person can actually make a difference. To Captain Kane, the room echoed. Olivia felt her throat tighten. She looked around at the faces, people who'd risked their careers, their safety, their lives to do the right thing. This wasn't me, she said quietly. This was all of us. But Brenda shook her head. You're the one who refused to quit, even when it would have been easier, even when it was dangerous. You're the reason we're standing here. Olivia didn't know what to say to that, so she just raised her glass. To doing the right thing, she said, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard, Ruiz added. They drank. Yeah. Later that night, Olivia stood alone in the parking lot, looking up at the stars. The ceremony was over. The trials were done. The system had been exposed, dismantled, and rebuilt. But the work wasn't finished. It never would be. There would always be someone trying to cut corners, silence dissent, prioritize profit over people. And there would always need to be someone willing to stand up and say no. Olivia had learned something over the past year, something she hadn't fully understood when she first walked into Redwood Crest with a plan to expose Veronica Hale. Power didn't come from rank or authority or fear. It came from refusing to be silent when silence was easier, from choosing to act when action was dangerous, from believing, even when it felt impossible, that one person could change things. She'd been dismissed, underestimated, threatened, and nearly killed. But she'd also saved lives, exposed corruption, and proven that the people at the top weren't invincible. And in the end, that was worth everything. Her phone buzzed one last time, a text from an unknown number. Olivia tensed, old instincts flaring, but when she opened it, the message was simple. "Thank you. You saved my father's life at Redwood Crest. I'll never forget that. Sarah Martinez." Olivia stared at the screen. Martinez, the young airman who died at Peterson, his daughter. She typed back, "I'm so sorry for your loss. Your father was a hero." The reply came quickly. "So are you." Olivia closed her eyes and let the words sink in. Then she pocketed her phone, walked to her car, and drove home. 1 year later, Olivia stood in front of a congressional committee in Washington, D.C., testifying on proposed healthcare reform legislation designed to prevent the kind of systemic abuse she'd exposed. The hearing room was packed: lawmakers, journalists, advocates, survivors. The committee chair, a senator from Ohio, leaned forward. "Captain Kane, based on your experience, what would you say is the single most important change we can make to protect patients and staff in hospitals across this country?" Olivia didn't hesitate. "Accountability," she said. "Real accountability. Not just policies on paper, but enforcement. Whistleblower protections that actually work. Independent oversight that can't be bought or intimidated. And a culture that values truth over reputation. And if we don't make those changes..." Olivia looked around the room. "Then what happened at Redwood Crest will keep happening. Different hospitals, different names, same outcome. People will suffer, people will die, and the ones responsible will walk away." The room was silent. "But if we do make those changes?" the senator asked. Olivia allowed herself a small smile. "Then we prove that the system can actually work, that justice isn't just for the powerful, and that the people who dedicate their lives to helping others don't have to sacrifice their integrity to survive." The senator nodded slowly. "Thank you, Captain. Your testimony has been invaluable." The hearing adjourned shortly after. Olivia stepped out of the building into bright afternoon sunlight, reporters waiting on the steps below. She didn't stop to answer questions, just walked past them, down the stairs, and into the city. Somewhere behind her, the work continued. Legislation would be debated, policies would be written, systems would change, slowly, imperfectly, but they would change. And Olivia would keep doing what she'd always done, showing up, speaking up, refusing to quit, because that's what real power looked like. Not a title or a rank or a position, just the choice to stand up, even when you're afraid, and say, "This isn't right, and I'm going to do something about it." She'd been dismissed as just another nurse. She'd been underestimated, threatened, and nearly killed. But in the end, she'd done exactly what she set out to do. She'd made them see her, she'd made them listen, and she'd made damn sure they'd never forget. The quiet woman who walked into Redwood Crest Medical Center 6 months ago had been invisible by design. The woman who walked out had become impossible to ignore. And that made all the difference.